Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, we're from group 2 and today we're going to perform our discussion about character and characterization. But before that, I'm going to introduce myself and my team members. First, me, Alifia, Difayana, student ID number J1A021021, and the second is Naura Fitri Amanda, student ID number J1A021022, and the last one is Zulfa Zain, student ID number J1A021028. Next slide, please. And for the first topic, it will be presented by Zulfa. So Zulfa, time is yours.
Okay, got it. So first, we will present you about the description about character and characterization. Next slide, please. Firstly, what is a character? In literature, character is a verbal representation of a human being as presented to us by authors through depiction of actions, conversations, descriptions, reactions, inner thoughts, and reflections, and also through authors' own interpretive commentary. The goal of literary characterization is to present not only the externally perceived person, but also and primarily the inner person, the secret self, those expressed and unexpressed inner thoughts, aims, motives, aspirations, joys, fears, obsessions, and frustrations that collectively make up human personalities. Next slide, please. And the second is character traits. What is character traits? Generally, trait means characteristic. According to Roberts, a trait is the quality of mind or habitual mode of behavior that is evident in both active and passive ways. Frequently, it may be people's primary characteristic, although what we find is the minor one and trivial. Distinguish between circumstances and character traits. When you study a fictional person, distinguish between circumstances and character, for circumstances have value only if they demonstrate important traits, qualities, or character. So look beyond circumstances, actions, appearances, and try to determine what these things show about character.
Okay, thank you, Zulfa. Next slide, please. For the next topic, it will be presented by me, Alifia Difayana, and the topic is about how author disclose character in literature. Next slide. Okay, well, basically there's 5 ways or methods that authors use to bring the characters to life. And the first way or method is actions by characters. Actions by characters will reveal their qualities, and what characters do or act in a literature is our best hint to understanding what they are. So yes, all right, to explain furthermore, actions by characters do tells us a lot about them, as well as how the character behaves. It could be towards themselves or towards the others, and also about the character attitudes. For example, we will find out is the character a funny person or a serious person based on their actions. So we can get the clue about what kind of character from how they act. And the second way or method is that the author's descriptions. The author's description will tell us about characters. Appearance and environment reveal much about a character's social and economic status. They also tell us about character traits. Next slide, please. And the third method is that what characters say. What characters say, dramatic statements and thoughts, reveals what they are like. Although the speeches of most characters are functional to keeping the action moving along, they provide material or insight from which we as a reader can draw a conclusion. Yes, right. So the speeches from the characters are not only to make the story goes or moves along, but it also gives us enough information about to tell the characters. For example, the character might speak in a straightforward or a direct manner or in an easy and comfortable manner. We all can find about that based on what the characters say. And the number four, the next way or method is that what others say. What other characters say about one another tells us about a character. Studying what characters say about each other can enhance the understanding of the character being discussed. And number five, the author speaking as a storyteller or an observer. What author speaking as a work's authorial voice says about a character is usually accurate, and the authorial voice can be accepted factually. Next slide, please. Okay, for the next topic is about types of characters, and those are round and flat. Next slide. Okay, for the first is about round characters. So round characters undergo change. The first characteristic about round characters is that the basic trait of round character is that we as a reader learn enough about them to permit us to conclude that they are full, lifelike, and memorable. We know enough information about them, like the inside about them, so round characters are more likely to be memorable for the reader. And the second characteristic is that a complementary quality about round characters is therefore that they are dynamic. That is, they recognize, change with, or adjust to circumstances. Round characters experience some type of change or growth, but not a physical growth. It's more like an emotional growth or change. But and the third one, such changes may be shown in an action or actions. Second, the realization of new strength and therefore the affirmation or previous decisions. Third, the acceptance of a new condition and the new for making changes. Fourth, or the discovery of unrecognized truths. And four, usually a round character play as a major role in a story, but it doesn't necessarily mean that all major characters are round characters, because we can also find a major character that is not round character. Next slide, please. Okay, the next is about flat characters. Unlike the round characters that undergo change, flat characters is more likely to stay the same or static. The first characteristic is that flat characters do not grow. They remain the same because they lack of knowledge or insight. Just like the name, flat characters is flat. They're not dynamic, they're more like static. And one of the factor is because there's not much knowledge or insight or information about them. And the second, they end where they begin, and those are static, not dynamic. The development of flat character doesn't change from the beginning of the story until the end, so they remain static. But well, you may be asking, why would we even write a flat character? Like, why would an author include a flat character in a story? Well, despite how static they are in a story, it is still important to have them. So yes, flat characters are not worthless in fiction. However, for they highlight the development of the round character. So we can see some kind of like contrast between the round characters, which are dynamic, and the flat characters, which are static. Flat character could be there in a story to fill in some kind of information and push the plot of the story along. And number four, usually flat characters are minor. For example, relative acquaintances, functionaries, but not all minor characters are necessarily flat. So to distinguish between round characters and flat characters doesn't necessarily come from like who's the minor characters or who's the major character, but we have to see it in their dynamic or static development. Number five, sometimes flat characters are prominent in certain type of literature where the focus is less on character than on performance. This kind of like literature that focus on performance more, such as police, and detective story, the flat character is prominent. The characters might be lively and engaging even though they do not develop or change throughout the story. Okay, for the next topic, it will be presented by Naura. So Naura, time is yours.
All right, so the last topic will be conveyed by me, and this is about the reality and probability, verisimilitude. So what is exactly the difference between reality and probability? Characters in fiction should be true to life. It shouldn't be too extravagant or else it won't be relatable with us, or it won't be relatable with how people usually act. There's a fine line between what characters possibly do and what they usually act. So what characters possibly do, we called it as the probabilistic work. Meanwhile, they usually act, we called it as the realistic work. Realistic work, which attempt a mirror life, set up a pattern of everyday framework. For example, you can see in the genre slice of life, from hardest three strangers, while probabilistic work create the expectation of the unusual or bizarre framework. For example, the allegory in one of the Halloran's Prose called Young Goodman Brown. Another example, in Maupassant the Necklace, Matilda lost a necklace and therefore hid the loss and borrowed money for the replacement when she could be truthful and admit her fault. It shows how the character was granted with probability, and in this case that she could be truthful and admit her fault to react to a problem, but instead the character make a decision in which it would secure their self-respect. In reality, that is the most frequent thing to commit by people. The next one is writing about character. How to write your character is that usually you will focus with the major characters, but you might also study one or more minor characters. And the second one, you might want to take notes and list as many traits of the character as you can, and determine how you would present details about the character. And the fourth one, you might want to determine their unusual traits, and then you might want to raise questions to stream down ideas. For example, who is the major character? How do you learn about this character from his or her own action or speeches, etc. And the last one, you'll consider to make an essay about your character. And your essay component would be the first one. It's introduction. It's you're going to identify the character that you are studying, along with the noteworthy problem in determining this character's quality. Second one is body. It consists the central idea and thesis sentence. Consider approaches such like develop a central trait, character's growth or change, actions or objects that reveal primary characteristics, develop qualities of a flat character. And the last one will be conclusion. Show how the character's traits are related to the work as a whole. For example, if the person was good but came to bad end, does this misfortune make them seem especially worthy? I think that's all. For me.
Okay, thank you. I guess that's it from us. Thank you so much for listening. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you guys.
kasih semuanya. Bye. Izin live ya.
Selamat istirahat. Selamat berweekend.